the 8x Planeswalker points. You know, it's one of the best ways to earn more buys to your to the next season.
Okay, so it looks like we're getting prepared to kick off round 8 over here. Yep. On our left, we have a dead ringer for Billy Moreno, Iain
Bartolomei.
He is playing green-white ramp, and on the right-hand side, we have Brian Page, who appears to be playing a blue-white Delver build. Ian's deck is the only creatures in it are 4 Primeval Titan, 4 Elishnorn, and 4 Solemn Simulacrum, and he has 3 Gideon Juras as his large threats. He has a White Sun Zenith, 3 Timely Reinforcements, 3 Data Judgments, 2 Oblivion Rings, 2 Ratchet Bombs, 4 Spheres, and 4 Ramps. So he is very dedicated to just ramping as fast as possible into one of his, big game-ending plays.
You've got to think if he can stick an Elishnorn, that's going to be a huge problem for Brian.
Right, as a recipe for success against not just Delver, but basically any creature-based deck in the format.
So Iain led off and passed over to Brian, who led off with a Delver. Rampant Growth on turn 2 from Iain.
So off to a very good start for his ramp deck here. Brian's deck is 4 Delver, 4 Snapcaster, 4 Geist. Geist of Saint Traff, rather. Sorry. 2 Dungeon Geist, 2 Invisible Stalker, 3 Gut Shot, 4 Mana Leak, a Mutagenic Growth, which is pretty popular inclusion. I've seen a lot of. 4 Vapor Snag, 3 Pike, 4 Ponder, and 4 Thought Scour. So not a ton in the way of being able to disrupt any of the big stuff Iain can do, with the exception of his 4 Mana Leaks.
And so Iain used that Rampant Growth to go and get his Singleton Mountain.
And the Singleton Mountain appears to be...
competitors, welcome to round 8. You have 50 minutes. You may begin.
He's playing 1 Mountain to enable 1 Kessig Wolf Run. Obviously, he can find both of these cards with the assistance of Primeval Titan.
Brian misses on the Delver, ponders to try and set it up for next turn, swings and lays a Glacial Fortress.
All right, Solemn Simulacrum from Iain, and he's just humming on all cylinders here. Under very little pressure, you had to assume the Ponder is going to engineer the Delver this turn, but so far Iain's off to a very good start.
For those of you who are counting, this is actually Iain's turn 3, even though there are 5 lands in play.
Yep, the 2/4/6 draw.
And so it looks like he wasn't able to set anything up with the Ponder as he Thought Scours it away.
Yep. Well, that's another nice interaction the deck has, is Ponder Thought Scour. You can keep 1 goodie, set garbage, and then... There's a Thought Scour, for being a seemingly innocuous card, has a ton of play in the Delver deck. There's a lot of different stuff between Snapcaster Mage and interactions with Ponder.
And that's a Moorland Haunt from Brian as he follows up with another Delver.
The suspicious 2 mana left up. So the issue from Brian's perspective here is he actually doesn't have a ton of time before Iain can just start playing over the top of Mana Leaks. So he needs to... Basically, these Delvers need to flip pronto, because I'm pretty positive Iain has a Day of Judgment in his hand. He can afford to sit and wait and take 1 hit, especially if he has a 7th land in his hand. Looks like we're going to run it out there right now and see where we're at.
Knocking off the 2 Delvers and drawing a card seems just fine.
Yep, and now he has to be fairly confident that there's no Mana Leak in Brian's hand either, because that would have certainly induced it there.
Definitely something that you want to stop. It was not a positive turn for Brian.
Yep.
Empty board where the other guys got a lot of mana and some very big spells.
Yeah, Iain flashed an Elishnorn too. Yeah, Iain flashed an Elishnorn too, and he's got to feel pretty confident that the coast is clear there if he hits 7 mana. This is not a good position for the Delver deck to be in. It plays very poorly from, the cards are very poor at dragging you out of the game. All right, he's going to run the Elishnorn out there because he's confident there's no leak. It's going to stick. That's going to get a Vapor Snag, which is fine, but
it's
without a Mana Leak here, it's just delaying the inevitable.
Answer.
He's just drawing another Delver.
And Delver's not going to do anything to help him here.
Yeah, 1 spot.
And he passes the turn.
Back over.
Good luck that spot. Come register right now.
It's back.
Iain says, yeah, this card's good. I'd like to play it again.
Gonna snag again.
All right, well, he's chipping away at Ian's life total.
Yep, and he gets to play he gets to activate his Moorland Haunt here and get a token, which again is suited up with a Pike. If he rips a Leak, then he's actually got a reasonable shot of winning this game, but it has to be, and he actually just drew one.
All right.
This is that was the perfect draw. And now he's actually got some...
Spirit gets in, and that's going to be for a few.
I see two
Vapor
snags,
and
a Ponder, a Thought Scour.
Yep. And he didn't hit. It was a Dungeon Geist and an Island that went in, so that's swinging for 4 out of the bin. And it looks like
he's going to get
just
hit with
run
a
into it. And there it is.
So now...
And Ian's got to be kicking himself. He's got multiple lands in hand. Probably should have run one out last turn.
He went 7, 8, 9.
Oh, he did?
Because he tapped out on turn 7. It got snagged twice. Okay. So
there's a Ponder, which is going to...
Just getting shoveled up here. Oh, no, he's keeping...
$10 draft, 29.
That's getting in for 6. Mutagenic growth. Actually, giant growths it because it drops itself into the bin. So that's going to be for 9, dropping Iain to 3.
And he's got Snapcaster Mage in hand with Mana Leak backup. So
a game that looked really bad for Brian turned around off of double Vapor Snag, just playing some delay tactics into a Mana Leak. But
now he has Elesh Norn with the ability to pay for a leak.
Wow.
So now, basically, what Brian needs to do here is go Snapcaster Mage for Vapor Snag, and make a Moorland Haunt token, put it on the pike, put the pike on it and go, which requires 6 mana. So he's 1 short of being able to run that line. He still has quite a bit of time here. He's, right now we're looking at a 3-turn clock, or 4-turn clock rather, without any additional.
He needs something else because Elesh Norn's a 4/7.
So he's got a lot of time, and a 6th land is probably... obviously, Brian has a lot of potential backup plays he can make here to lock it out.
We've seen one of the Dungeon Geists go into the graveyard, but if he could find the other one, that is, in fact, the only card in his deck that survives Elesh Norn on the board.
Yep,
there it is.
$10 draft number 29. Come on up to the side of it stage. $10 draft
and so that demands an answer from Iain.
He obviously doesn't want a Day of Judgment his own guy away, but...
That opens up so many more options for Brian, but at some point...
Yep. He even has 4 copies of Inkmoth Nexus in his deck, which would be suitable for blocking purposes here too, but he does not happen to have one in play. So this is...
Still better than losing next turn.
Third turn, okay.
No, it's even better than losing next turn.
All right, there's the 6th land, so now, assuming... Iain doesn't have... He basically needs to drop an Inkmoth Nexus to survive this play. Ratchet Bomb will also allows him to survive this turn too, so that was a big draw. Because now he has a way to cover against the token. So this is pretty rough for Brian. Now he thought he would have lethal, and now he has to wait for a spot where he can go over the top of the bomb plus Elesh Norn.
Second call for Jose Rodriguez. $10 draft number 29. Please report to the side event stage.
So Brian's pondering his options here. Clearly that Ratchet Bomb changed what he was going to do.
He just has to say go now.
Which he does with alacrity.
So, Ian's just going to keep it set to 0. He understands that the Moorland Haunt represents basically haste if he has a way to get the Elesh Norn off the board, so he's happy just to use that as insurance against.
Absolutely. And there's a timely reinforcement, which...
Just gain 6. Doesn't actually prevent Brian. The pike is way over lethal.
Still lethal, yeah.
He can't get out from Elesh Norn just yet.
Now, part of that may be showing Brian that he has that card.
Well, it's I mean, also, I guess the life doesn't matter, but he might as well cast it, I suppose. There's kind of no reason not to. Also, if he's planning on siding him out, which I'd be surprised, but it's possible, it actually is good bluffing value to show.
Draft number 18. Your opponent waiting on you.
That's a card that...
draft number 18. Please come on up to the side of the stage.
All right, so he's snapping and snagging. So this is basically going to induce the Ratchet Bomb, which basically puts Brian back in the same spot. He still has Snapcaster or another Vapor Snag as a draw to win from here.
Yeah, the one thing that the timely reinforcements did do was get him off of Vapor Snag as a loss.
Right. So yeah, he's going to trade right now with the token. So I assume we're going to lead off the turn by recasting our Elesh Norn. All right, that's where we start. Plays a land, says go. He's going to Thought Scour himself. Flips over a
Geist and an island.
Finds another
Thought Scour himself. Moorland Haunt, Vapor
Flips over a snag.
Commander pod number 12.
Passes back over.
Come on up to the side of the stage. Commander pod number 12. Come on.
Oh, he just drew a Wolf Run, which is going to be.
And that will end the game unless there's something happening here. I think we've seen all of the Vapor Snags at this point. Or is that one sitting?
Yeah, it's actually a big draw because in the event that Brian actually ripped Snapcaster this turn, now he has to Snapcaster inside of combat to survive the turn, and then Iain can just recast. No, there's the
snag. Yep.
So that's, if he didn't rip Wolf Run, that snag actually would have been lethal because he would have been able to just Moorland Haunt and kill.
Now he's walking into
Leak. He doesn't have a choice though because that Moorland Haunt's representing lethal.
Yep. So Brian had a window if he had it, but he did not. And Iain.
And that's pretty. I mean, that game is pretty crazy because, for as like fast as Elesh Norn hit the table with Iain at a relatively comfortable life total, Brian still had plenty of possible draws to get him out of that.
Absolutely, and they were deep in. We saw, I believe, 3 Elesh Norns because there was the one that was dealt with. There was
the one that
he had
a day away,
and then he had the third one right behind him.
Yep. So now going into the sideboard here, Iain has 3 copies of Autumn's Veil, which I don't necessarily know if he wants here. I assume they're more for dedicated like blue-black control decks, but it's possible, if he has Vapor Snag on the mind after that, he might want to take a look at it.
Well, he doesn't know it, but Brian doesn't have a whole lot of answers to Elesh Norn other than Vapor Snag.
Yeah, I assume that he's going to be bringing in his 1 copy of Oblivion Ring and his 2 copies of Dissipate and his 2 Phantasmal Images because every creature in Iain's deck is a pretty juicy target for image.
I would think that the other 2 Dungeon Geists come in just as guys that survive Elesh Norn and can
lock down all of his big threats too. Like you can Elesh Norn a Titan and then go about your business. Iain also has a copy of Ratchet Bomb, another Day of Judgment, and a Timely Reinforcement. It's possible he wants some number, possibly all of these cards. Both of these players enter this round also 7-0, so we already have day 2 locked off on both sides. They're just trying to put themselves in a better position for a top 8 run tomorrow. And I actually can't get over how much Iain looks like a trimmed down Billy Moreno. The resemblance is shocking.
Yeah.
So both players sideboarded fairly quickly, so I guess they know exactly how they want to get set up for the matchup.
Well, both of these decks, I think, are pretty much in the gauntlet, and so if you don't have a sideboarding plan against them, you're probably not at 7-0.
I mean, Iain's deck's a little bit further off the radar. Obviously, there's been some green-white ramp decks, and it's sort of a derivative of a bunch of other ramp decks that exist. But if you asked me, what are going to be the 5 most played decks this weekend, green-white ramp would not have made my list.
That's fair.
Brian's deck much more, obviously. He would have been the first guess.
Blue-Eyed Delver being in that number 1 slot, not too surprising. But the green-white's a little bit more off the radar, but Elesh Norn has been one of the big cards, and so since especially that first game seemed to be all about Elesh Norn, probably have a plan in mind for what happens when that's my primary thing that I have to answer.
Brian is very challenging for the Delver deck to function with a against an Elesh Norn. You basically have Dungeon Geist as the only thing that can really work.
Main deck and Vapor, it's Dungeon Geist and Vapor Snag main deck.
Yeah, if you preemptively put a sword on a guy, that's another way to get out of it, but Brian doesn't even have swords main, he just has pikes. So How do you feel the Invitational in Baltimore went last weekend?
Oh, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. There were some staggeringly great feature matches all throughout the day. Day 1, day 2.
I tend to disagree because I was actually 0-4 in feature matches on the weekend.
Oh, okay.
They weren't that good for me.
But one of the great things about it was the way that it fell out. You had a lot of great feature matches in the Standard Open and the Legacy Open as well. And a lot of the names that you like to follow were floating up around the top and getting up to the top tables, getting under the cameras. Some really good Magic played all weekend long.
Yep. No, my match I played against Sam Black at the end of day 1 in the Legacy portion, and that was one of the. I mean, I played a ton of Magic, and that one's probably in like top 10 as far as like challenging, like good game. And I lost the match as well. It wasn't just like saying that because I won, but that was one of the better matches of Magic I've had the fortune of playing in. So, turn 1 Delver out of Brian. Both players keeping their 7.
And turn 1 Delver on the play a little bit better than turn 1 Delver on the draw.
Bricks off. He has a sort of War and Peace in his hand, so he's brought it in. He's resolving a Ponder, which is showing Snag.
Delver, Snag, and...
So this is pretty awesome because he gets to keep, set Delver, play Delver, and set and Snag on top. Yeah, they're flipping next turn. There's a Sphere of the Suns.
Time to go crazy.
There's the Snag. If Brian has a Mana Leak in his hand, it's going to be very challenging for Iain to win this game. I don't know. I've not seen one, but passing with 3 up.
He's just looking. Let's see.
Standard sealed.
I suppose timely reinforcements will give him like a little breathing room.
Standard sealed players. Your pairings have been posted.
Now that gives Iain the opportunity to day if he has it in hand.
Ratchet Bomb would also be a big play here.
Yep.
But all these play the Mana Leak.
Yep. Let's play around. Take some damage and we'll deal with it. And
I think I feel like I saw Ratchet Bomb in his hand, so it's possible he has a 5th mana source and he's willing to just play around Leak.
There's an Ink Moth. Comes in. Playing around Leak with Ratchet Bomb doesn't put you in great shape here because you're going to take another 6 before you get a chance to do anything. And that puts you in.
He's going to go for Gideon.
And Leak should close this out.
Yeah, he's basically falling to 1 here. So he basically can't cast a creature for the entire game because he knows about the Vapor Snag in Brian's hand. So this will be challenging to come back from.
He'll need the timely reinforcements just to get anywhere.
Yeah. He needs Day of Judgment, and then he needs timely to give him some breathing space.
And Day walks, at this point, right into Mana Leak. Oh, here's 5 for another try at Gideon.
And he has a green up. He tapped his Sphere of the Suns. I suppose that he has Autumn's Veil in his hand. He still could cast off a Sphere, but I believe leaving the forest up there is probably a representation that he has Autumn's Veil in his hand.
You will now report your results.
At least threaten it, but I'm not sure why you wouldn't leave the Sphere of the Suns up.
I think it's just a psychological response. Like I have a green, I have a green spell that costs a green up. I'm going to leave my forest instead.
Yeah, but you've got an inexhaustible resource in the forest as opposed to your Sphere of the Suns has got 1 more counter on it.
No, I agree that the play is in the abstract not very good, but I think it's just a psychological
message.
Oh. Yeah. So we have Gideon that at the minimum can hold us off for another turn here. And we still have a lot of draws to stabilize the board. It's going to be challenging for Iain to, without timely reinforcements, ever actually get anything going.
Yeah. Now, if he could drop a timely reinforcements, he could use Gideon's -2 and take out one of the Delvers, but it puts him in really dangerous place to be.
Right. The big thing he needs right now is a Ratchet Bomb. That's what gives him the breathing space to jam Gideon for a while, get some breathing space, and then...
Oh, Gideon's going down next turn if he gets a +2.
Right, so he's casting another Sphere.
Gideon +2s says, come and get me, and is going to join his predecessor in the bin. Iain looks like he's trying to figure out if there's something else he's got.
Brian also has Dissipate mana up too, so he's got a lot of things covered right now.
Ian's at a place where can't really afford.
I believe he just drew Day of Judgment.
Did just draw a Day, which gets through Leak right now. He's got plenty of mana for it.
Yep. And if he has Autumn's Veil, he can also fight over the Dissipate as well.
Looks like he's going for Elish Norn.
He has Elish Norn with Autumn's Veil. Right, so not even Autumn's Veil.
I'm not even.
Yep. And that was very smart of Iain to concede there instead of playing the Autumn's Veil, because he knows the Vapor Snag still kills him, so you don't want to show that you brought an Autumn's Veil. Just way better just to concede.
Now, the question I have is, why would you push for the Elish Norn there? Because if it lands, all that happens is...
Well, if he has Autumn's Veil, if he has Elish Norn plus Autumn's Veil, he can survive one Vapor Snag and actually get back into the game.
Yeah, okay.
I still don't know. I don't know if his hand actually was Day of Judgment or if it's just some other whites.
No, we definitely saw Day.
Okay.
Yep. So he had other ways to go, but yeah, pushing it. If he had the Autumn's Veil,
then he's actually got he's got Brian on a 5-turn clock where his hand might not be able to handle it. If he's only has the one snag, he's actually got a shot at winning the game from there. But we know that Brian had 2 snags plus Dissipate plus. I mean, whoever knows his hand. He's still on 3 lands, so his hand's just all gas.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's still got. At that point, his outs after if the Vapor Snags countered include 4 Snapcasters as well.
Yeah, he's got a million draws in there.
He's got, even if he never blocks again, he still is at 20. He's got 5 shots that he's going to take from Elish Norn before he's out of luck.
Right.
Dungeon Geist, too many outs there. I think the Day may have been the play.
So that draw was pretty much as close to the as perfect Delver draw as you can get. In the absence of flipping over his first Delver on turn 1, that's about as much you can ask for. Delver into Ponder Delver into multiple counter spells.
Yeah, the Ponder that draws the second one and sets them both up to flip puts a whole lot of pressure on Iain.
And once the Delver deck actually gets on the front foot. I mean, all the tools it has at its disposal are so good at keeping the edge.
Oh yeah, it plays from ahead very well, and we actually saw it play from a fairly even board state where it was behind on mana, but the life totals were fairly even. But we thought it was pretty far behind, but it made a pretty good game of it in game 1. So as we head to game 3, we've got Iain Bartolomei on the left of your screen with Green-White Wolf Run, and Brian Page on the right of your screen with Blue-White Delver. I'm Jared Silva alongside Patrick Sullivan. We're here at Grand Prix Salt Lake City.
We are in round 8 right now, 2 7-0 competitors. I think these games go, obviously, being on the play versus being on the draw is just a tremendous difference in how these games play out.
Certainly. So Brian Page was on the play last game, got out to a great start, really put Iain Bartolomei behind from the get-go, and he was never able to recover. In game 1, Iain Bartolomei was able to take a few points from an unflipped Delver before ramping up his mana very quickly into a couple of Elish Norns, and was just able to take control of the game from there.
And I think that for this matchup, it's actually very challenging for Brian to win on the draw if he doesn't have Delver, because if Iain has a ramp spell on turn 2, that means Brian's going into his second turn with no pressure on the board, and Iain in a position to either play very powerful spells if Brian plays out, or he's happy to play the waiting game if Brian's sitting on Leak or Dissipate. So on the draw, I think it's very important for him to have Delver Seekers, because most of Iain's average to better hands can quickly ramp over the top of Mana Leaks if he's not under any pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to make him cast the spells, because if he doesn't have to, he can just sit on it until those cards just go blank in your hand.
And Brian looks like he's going down to 5.
Ooh, that puts him in a tough spot. But we'll remember with both these
Delver Leak and Ponder and 2 lands or whatever, we can definitely find 5-card hands that can get the job done.
Absolutely. But Brian's already locked up his ticket to day 2 with a 7-0 start, so can't feel too bad here.
I don't. My experience playing in tournaments is like, assuming you day 2 at a Grand Prix, if you won or lost your last round, that's all. All your emotion is like, watch the guy who's 8-1 but lost round 9, and find the guy who's 7-2 who won his final round to make day 2, and it's like the guy. It looks like the guy who went 8-1 is like at the end of his rope, and the guy who's 7-2 is ecstatic. It's really funny.
Iain leads off with a Forest, and let's see.
Turn 1 Ponder.
Ponder. Not quite Delver.
He has Snap, Leak, and we're going back and shuffling.
Now, we didn't see enough of Brian's hand to know whether this is digging for mana or whether this is digging for something better to do.
If he's throwing back Leak and Vapor Snag, it means either he doesn't have a second land or he needs a threat.
Yep. Drawn Cold, I think, found another Ponder, which will at least let him look a bit more.
All right, and this is the start that Brian's really got to be concerned about here.
Yep.
Is aside from being on 5 cards, which is already a disadvantage, Ian's under no pressure, which means it's a little bit different after board where Brian has access to Dissipate, where he can play. Brian has better tools to play the waiting game. Well, right now his mana leaks are in danger of just being bad draws.
Yep.
If he taps out, obviously he can't stop anything with mana leak, and if he's sitting there waiting, then Iain can take his time building up his mana and never exposing anything valuable to mana leak.
All right, and so Iain uses that Rampant Growth to go get his Singleton Mountain, which we saw be very important in Game 1.
Plays a Tomb Scour. Tomb Scour finds a second land, which he plays and says go, so I believe he was on a 1-lander there.
Looks like we found it. And so those images did come in, and we see a Dungeon Geist, which were 2 and 2, but we've got to think that those are in as well.
Right. All right, so we're cycling another Tomb Scour here. Brian's just drawn an Oblivion Ring. We're going to Scour again.
Yep.
Flips over a Mutagenic Growth in a land, draws a mana leak and says go.
So he is still digging for land number 3. He doesn't need to get all that many lands on the board in order to get going aggressively, but in order to be effective, he does need to have a couple.
And now he's at the point where he just has to leave up mana because Ian's in range of playing so many big cards.
Anthony Chechi in standard Window Box number 6. Come on up to the side of the stage. Your event is waiting.
He's going to cast a Solemn. I assume this is going to get hit with a mana leak. Brian can't afford to waste his mana by not casting things, even if Solemn isn't the ideal target.
Yep, and Iain doing exactly what he wants to do, which is make him use his spells on non-essential stuff. Thing is, like, you also can't just say you have a Gideon. You can't give him that extra land and the guy.
Yeah, certainly your mana leak is going down in value if Solemn resolves anyway, so you might as well fire it off there. The bigger issue is just Brian's jammed on mana.
Oblivion Ring takes Gideon out of the picture.
We are still taking signups for tomorrow's standard.
And if he could find his 7th land, this would be an opening for Elesh Norn.
He might not even want to play Elesh Norn unless it's because of the threat of Phantasmal Image. He might be inclined to just wait until he's at least killing one guy with Elesh Norn before he runs it out there.
So here's Geist, which opens the door to that. But it looks like Iain is having trouble finding that 7th land.
Yep.
$10 draft number 31. Come on up to the side events area. $10 draft number 31. Come on up to the side events area.
All right, there's timely reinforcements. Good for 3 tokens, no life gain.
But that makes the Geist attacking a much worse proposition for Brian.
Passes the turn back.
Now Brian's gotten back on his feet here. Here's another land. And he's going to be able to be starting to put some pressure on and have that that mana back up. Looks like another Geist in his hand, so
yeah, it makes it
may just run in.
Right. There's the Angel. Everyone in front of Geist. This is a pretty important thing. If he only puts 2 in front, then Vapor Snag can ruin that block. So a fairly straightforward play if you're experienced, but I've seen a lot of people.
Absolutely, you feel like, oh, I don't want to lose them all. Well, you're not going to lose them all anyways.
Yeah.
Geist doesn't have enough power to take them down. Although he has seen mutagenic growth from Brian, so that would have been a possible way to punish that block. Even though I agree with you, absolutely correct.
There's 4 Vapor Snags versus 1, maybe 2 mutagenic growths. Also, Gutshot's probably not in his deck anymore, but you know that card's also floating around these lists. So.
Yep. You've seen one of the growths already hit the bin, though. So, and once again, it looks like Ian's having trouble finding that 7th mana, but he does have Day of Judgment.
Yeah, without the 7th mana, he's running a lot of stuff into mana leaks. Brian's tanking, which means it's very unlikely he has. I think he was mulling over whether or not he wanted to Vapor Snag his own Geist of St. Traft.
And it looks like we're going to find that 7th land the hard way. So Rampant Growth from Ian puts him up to Elish Norn mana.
Yeah. Also means all of his 4s are out of mana leak range, which is another big, specifically Day of Judgment, big hurdle to get over.
Area. Your draft is waiting. Jason Bulkowski.
Now Solemn turns into a kind of stay ahead or get further ahead card here.
I mean, Ian's deck has no shortage of mana. He can do infinite things with mana, and because of mana leaks, he still wants to draw more lands. So, I mean, we saw in that first game that he won, I mean, he was on up to 12, 13 mana, and he was using all of it to fight through the Vapor Snags and mana leaks that Brian was presenting.
Apparently, Geist of St. Traft likes Brian a lot.
Yep, just ripped 1.
Really wants to play. We've seen 2 of them go down already to Soldier Tokens and a Day of Judgment, and the third one just hit the board.
Yeah, it's a little weird from Ian's perspective because I think he had to feel pretty comfortable that Mana Leak was not in his opponent's hand last turn. Even though Brian rips Geist of St. Traft, Ian doesn't know that. So, from Ian's perspective, Mana Leak could still be in his hand. Yeah, because a backup Geist of St. Traft means you wouldn't have leaked there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's
the Vapor Snag play that we were discussing last turn. Brian decides to take that 1 point of damage, put that back in his
and there's a Sphere of the Suns,
and make that Day of Judgment not very judgy.
Legacy Challenge player.
Ian also flashed a Ancient Grudge in his hand. We don't even know if Brian still has equipment left in his deck. Brian's going to ponder and send it back.
Did not look long at those cards. Alright, and so Brian draws Cold, hits a Glacial Fortress.
Another Geist.
Geist back down. Now Brian's been pretty effective at turning Ian's out of 2-for-1 cards into 1-for-1 cards.
Right, yeah.
The Day of Judgments have not been doing a whole lot of work.
Right, this has been trading off.
So Geist comes in. We don't even see the Angel as he beats him and passes the turn. And we're back over to Ian. Ian drops an Ink
We're
Moth
up to 10 mana now, so now we're in. Elish Norn can play over the top Mana Leak. By not casting it, I'm assuming that he actually just does not have anything. Brian just drew Sword of War and Peace, which is going to play right into that Grudge if he casts it. Unwilling to cast.
Geist comes in, and Ian's thinking long enough that we're going to see the token this time. Let's remember that Brian started from a 5-card hand, and he was on the draw, so he already was at a tempo loss.
So he's going to play Sword and say go, which means he's representing Dissipate. Leak he would have played before combat, and
now Ancient Grudge gets around this anyways.
Oh no, never mind.
No, he's going to pass, and Ancient Grudge
that was bizarre.
We'll knock it down.
Ian's flicking the cards around in his hand. I think he's just dead to Geist Saint Draft.
We do have an Ink Moth Nexus on the board.
Yeah, he's at 4, so he has another block.
He needs he needs to block the Angel.
After one last one box, and you need to come onto the side events area and register right now.
So here's an interesting interaction. Gideon is not an out here because
if you are interested in filling them, come up right now.
This is Snapcaster Mage for Vapor Snag.
Which makes what I was about to say completely unnecessary.
There's the
Autumn's Veil. So Gideon is not an out because of the Angel. The Angel is put into play attacking, and so he gets to choose who it attacks regardless of whether or not Gideon has told everyone to come and fight.
Pretty funky rules interaction.
Yep. And there is a rip from Iain. Didn't even make it to his hand.
Oh, Autumn's Veil for the mana leak.
And so Brian will pick up some of his cards and put them in the bin.
So this is going to be a Phantasmal Image, I assume, to Legend Rule Elish Norn.
Or Dungeon Geist.
Yeah, because that's still lethal, and now he gets to keep his image in case something funky happens.
Well, Dungeon Geist is only a 1/1 because of the Elish Norn. So,
but it also means that Snag, there's a variety of cards that kill him here.
Absolutely. I mean, locking down the Elish Norn means that another Elish Norn from Iain is not an out.
Right.
If you Phantasmal Image, then you get to
rip
an Elish Norn and you're good. But right now, a second Elish Norn is going to actually take Iain backwards.
Yep. Also, getting him to one is also super valuable.
Very
also,
relevant.
You can tell from like Ian's sort of the way he's been playing his cards and his body language. Sort of, I think he's out of gas. I think Brian can also sense that too.
Yep.
So there's no reason to play into it when Ian's probably just drawing off the top of his deck from here.
Yeah, it's time to rip for Iain, and I don't even know what you. Now I don't know why you. This makes it lethal.
This is just lethal.
Yep.
And there's the Grudge. Yep.
Grudge is not going to do it.
Mulligan's to 5 on the draw. No Delver. No problem.
Impressive play from Brian. Tight.
Yep.
Iain, not a great draw. Gave him the opportunity, but Brian made some very good plays to take advantage of it.